BOGO Beans, welcome back. I'm Roedah.
And I'm Nour, and this is Chapters Chitchat, your weekly excuse to overanalyze a single sentence for 20 minutes.
Every week, we read excerpts from books that make us spiral in a good way.
Whether it's poetic, unhinged, or just plain confusing, we're diving in with ratings, outrageous explanations, and the occasional existential crisis.
This is not your English lit class. It's deeper, messier, and way more fun.
So grab your emotional support beverage. I'm drinking a eternal, naturally alkaline spring water.
So am I.
Get cozy, and let's crack open a chapter.
This is Chapters Chitchat. Okay, so picture this. A city where everyone is happy, peaceful, and thriving. But only because one child has to live in absolute misery. Would you stay or would you walk away? That's the question Ursula K. Guin throws at us in The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas.
Okay. With a clamor of bells that set the swallows soaring, the festival of summer came to the city Omelas, bright towered by the sea. The ringing of the boats in harbor sparkled with flags. In the streets between houses with red roofs and painted walls, between old moss-grown gardens and under avenues of trees, past great parks and public buildings, processions moved. Some were decorous, old people in long stiff robes of mauve and gray, grave master workmen, quiet, merry women carrying their babies and chatting as they walked. In other streets, the music beat faster, a shimmering of going and tambourine, and the people went dancing. The procession was a dance. Children dodged in and out, their high calls rising like the swallows crossing flights over the music and the singing. All the processions wound towards the north side of the city, where on the great water meadow called the green fields, boys and girls, naked in the bright air, with mud-stained feet and ankles and long, lithe arms, exercised their restive horses before the race. The horses wore no gear at all, but a halter without bit. Their manes were braided with streamers of silver, gold, and green. They flared their nostrils and pranced and boasted to one another. They were vastly excited, the horse being the only animal who has adopted our ceremonies as his own. Far off to the north and west, the mountains stood up half encircling Omelas on her bay. The air of the morning was so clear that the snow still crowning the 18 peaks burned with white gold fire across the miles of sunlit air. Under the dark blue of the sky, there was just enough wind to make the banners that marked the race course snap and flutter now and then. In the silence of the broad green meadows, one could hear the music winding through the city streets, farther and nearer and ever approaching. A cheerful, faint sweetness of the air from time to time trembled and gathered together and broke out into the great joyous clanging of the bells.
Joyous. How is one to tell about joy? How describe the citizens of Omelas? They were not simple folk, you see, though they were happy. But we do not say the words of cheer much anymore. All smiles have become archaic. Given a description such as this one tends to make certain assumptions. Given a description such as this one tends to look next for the king, mounted on a splendid stallion and surrounded by his noble knights, or perhaps a golden litter borne by great muscled slaves. But there was no king. They did not use swords or keep slaves. They were not barbarians. I do not know the rules or laws of their society, but I suspect that they were singularly few. As they did without monarchy and slavery, so they also got on without the stock exchange, the advertisement, the secret police, and the bomb. Yet I repeat that these were not simple folk, not dulcet shepherds, noble savages, bland utopians. They were not less complex than us. The trouble is that we have a bad habit, encouraged by pedants and sophisticates, of considering happiness as something rather stupid. Only pain is intellectual, only evil interesting. This is the treason of the artist, a refusal to admit the banality of evil and the terrible boredom of pain. If you can't lick 'em, join 'em. If it hurts, repeat it. But to praise despair is to condemn delight. To embrace violence is to lose hold of everything else. We have almost lost hold. We can no longer describe happy man, nor make any celebration of joy. How can I tell you about the people of Omelas? They were not naive, happy children, though their children were in fact happy. They were mature, intelligent, passionate adults whose lives were not wretched. Oh, miracle! But I wish I could describe it better. I wish I could convince you. Omelas sounds, in my words, like a city in a fairy tale, long ago and far away, once upon a time. Perhaps it would be best if you imagined it as your own fancy bids, assuming you will rise to the occasion. For certainly I cannot suit you all. For instance, how about technology? I think that there would be no cars or helicopters in and above the streets. This follows from the fact that the people of Omelas are happy people. Happiness is based on a just discrimination of what is necessary, what is neither necessary nor destructive, and what is destructive. In the middle category, however, that of the unnecessary but undestructive, that of comfort, luxury, exuberance, etc., they could perfectly well have central heating, subway trains, washing machines, all kinds of marvelous devices not yet invented here. Floating light sources, fuelless power, and a cure for the common cold. Or they could have none of that. It doesn't matter. As you like it. I incline to think that people from towns up and down the coast have been coming to Omelas during the last days before the festival on very fast little trains and double-deck trams. And that the train station of Omelas is actually the handsomest... This is one sentence. Hang on. Okay. And that the train stations of Omelas is actually the handsomest building in town, though plainer than the magnificent farmer's market. But even granted trains, I fear the Omelas so far strikes some of you as goody-goody. Smiles, bells, parades, horses, bleh. If so, please add an orgy. If an orgy would help, don't hesitate. Let us not. However, have temples from which issue beautiful nude priests and priestesses already half in ecstasy and ready to copulate with any man or woman, lover or stranger, who desires union with the deep godhead of the blood. Although that was my first idea. But really, it would be better not to have any temples in Omelas. At least, not manned temples. Religion, yes. Clergy, no. Surely the beautiful nudes can just wander about, offering themselves like divine souffles to the hunger of the needy and the rapture of the flesh. Let them join the processions. Let tambourines be struck above the copulations, and the glory of desire be proclaimed upon the gongs. And, a not unimportant point, let the offspring of these delightful rituals be beloved and looked after by all. One thing I know there is none of in Omelas is guilt. But what else should there be? I thought at first there were no drugs, but that's puritanical. For those who like it, the faint, insistent sweetness of druse may perfume the ways of the city. Druse, which first brings a great lightness and brilliance to the mind and limbs, and then after some hours, a dreamy languor, and wonderful visions at last of the very arcane and inmost secrets of the universe, as well as exciting the pleasures of sex beyond all belief, and it is not habit-forming. For more modest tastes, I think there ought to be beer. What else belongs in the joyous city? The sense of victory, surely, the celebration of courage. But as we did without clergy, let us do without soldiers. The joy built upon successful slaughter is not the right kind of joy. It will not do. It is fearful and it is trivial. A boundless and generous contentment, a magnanimous triumph felt not against some outer enemy, but in communion with the finest and fairest in the souls of all men everywhere in the splendor of the world's summer. This is what swells in the hearts of the people of Omelas, and the victory they celebrate is that of life. I don't think many of them need to take druse. Okay, can we pause there really fast?
Yeah.
What did I just read?
I don't know either. I didn't understand it either. What the hell?
Because the whole thing was a description, right?
Yeah.
So we know that there is a festival happening, Festival of Summer, and people are traveling to the festival. However, the way he's describing it, he makes it seem at first that this is a simple town. They don't struggle because they are devoid of hardship. Mm-hmm. But hardship, a lot of us, we equate that to like, I don't know, like making things hard, like advancement bringing upon hardship. He mentions like, the absence of bombs, the absence of this or that. But then he says something that makes me think, actually, this is modern day, because there's fast trains with double deck trams and, potentially washing machines and what have you. But then he also talks about joy and how he talks about joy and happiness and how happiness helps, or happiness, your level of happiness is based on what is meant for you as deemed as necessary, unnecessary but undestructive, and what is destructive. And what I'm trying to see is he trying to then imply that they're happy because all they need is what is necessary? They're not partaking in any more than that. And they're certainly not participating in what's destructive, because he also outlines clergy and soldiers as being destructive potentially as well. Other than that, I'm like lost. That was a lot of words, a lot of very long sentences. And I was stumbling through as I was reading.
For those who like it, the faint, insistent sweetness of druze may perfume the ways of the city. Druze, which first brings a great lightness and brilliance to the mind and limbs, and then after some hours, a dreamy languor, and wonderful visions at last of the very arcane and inmost secrets of the universe, as well as exciting the pleasures of... So, okay. That sounds like a drug.
Omelas is not real. This is all hypothetical.
Okay.
And the author is saying, imagine a city where everyone is happy. But don't be fooled. They're not dumb and happy. They're not just happy because they don't realize what's going on. They are cultured, they're intelligent, they're aware. And that will challenge like how we see happiness, right? Because we tend to think of happiness as very surface level, and then pain is really deep, you know. But happiness in and of itself can be deep. It can be felt by those who are well-versed or whatever, right? And then the author continues to describe like a perfect world almost. And then it's like, okay, if your brain can't think about it, then okay, insert whatever you need to. Put in the orgies, put in the, I don't know, the drugs, I guess, whatever. And then just omit the structures or the people that would then cause harm. So the clergy, the soldiers, whatever. And I guess that's where we left off. But then he says, I don't think many of them need to take the drug. I don't know. It feels like it's too good to be true, but let's keep going. Do you want to continue reading? And then let's see what we think about this city.
Most of the processions have reached the green fields by now. A marvelous smell of cooking goes forth from the red and blue tents of the provisioners. The faces of small children are amably sticky. In the benign gray beard of a man, a couple of crumbs of rich pastry are entangled. The youths and girls have mounted their horses and are beginning to group around the startling line of the course. An old woman, small, fat, and laughing, is passing out flowers from a basket, and tall young men wear her flowers in their shining hair. A child of 9 or 10 sits at the edge of the crowd alone, playing on a wooden flute. People pause to listen, and they smile, but they do not speak to him, for he never ceases playing and never sees them, his dark eyes wholly wrapped in the sweet thing magic of the tune. It sounds like everyone's under a spell. He finishes and slowly lowers his hands, holding the wooden flute. As if that little private silence were the signal, all at once a trumpet sounds from the pavilion near the starting line. Imperious melancholy... Did I say that right? Imperious melancholy. I usually don't read out loud, guys. Piercing. The horses rear on their slender legs, and some of them neigh in answer. Somber-faced, the young riders stroke the horses' necks and soothe them, whispering, "Quiet, quiet, there, my beauty, my hope." They begin to form in rank along the starting line. The crowds along the racecourse are like a field of grass and flowers in the wind. The festival of summer has begun. Do you believe? Do you accept the festival? This sounds like a cult. Do you accept the festival? The city? The joy? No? Then let me describe one more thing.
Okay, pause. Okay, I have questions for you. There's no kings. There's no church. Or like, there's no people in the church. There's no army, no soldiers, no police. There's drugs, there's orgies, there's magical technology. The people are happy, but they're deep. They feel. Can you accept that kind of happiness? Like, can happiness exist in the absence of pain? I just want to ask that now before we continue.
I don't know if it does, because if you don't experience pain and hardship, how do you know that you're happy? Like, I feel like happiness comes from the contrast of having gone through difficulty and having seen the bad side in order to appreciate the good. So this sounds like delusion.
Okay, so then let's say we fill in the blanks with what we think is a perfect paradise on earth, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say that city sat in front of you. What would it take for you to reject that paradise? Like, I'm not talking about the afterlife. I'm talking about like here. Like, what questions would it bring to you?
I don't think I would reject it. I mean, if I were to compare it to my life right now, there's a lot of hardship and difficulties. If I were to be given this on a silver platter, why would I reject it? It's like being offered essentially heaven. I mean,
but then that's only because you have experienced your life as it is now. You've gone through your own trials or tribulations in life, and that's how you see that sense of happiness being legitimate, because it's something different from the pain. So then let's say you have children after that. Like, let's say you move into that city, you have your children of your own. Would you keep them in that city so they can be happy forever? Do you feel like that's a meaningful life?
No. I would send them to this life.
Right.
It's kind of like when trust fund kids.
Go make your own money.
Yeah.
Learn for yourself.
Job. They don't live amongst the regular folk. And it becomes hard for them to appreciate what they have.
Yeah.
And then when they do run into hardship at some point, it like blindsides them. So I would want my children to, learn the value of hard work, and not only for them to be happy, but to also gain life experience, gain skills.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to read the next little bit and then pass it off to you. But if you need to pause to discuss, let me know. So we left off at, do you believe? Do you accept the festival, the city, the joy? No? Then let me describe one more thing. In a basement under one of the most beautiful public buildings of Omelas, or perhaps in the cellar of one of its spacious private homes, there is a room. It has one locked door and no window. A little light seeps in dustily between the cracks of the boards, secondhand from a cobwebbed window somewhere across the cellar. In one corner of the little room, a couple of mops with stiff, clotted, foul-smelling heads stand near a rusty bucket. The floor is dirt, a little damp to the touch, as cellar dirt usually is. The room is about 3 paces long and 2 wide, a mere broom closet or disused tool room. In the room, a child is sitting. It could be a boy or a girl. It looks about 6, but actually is nearly 10. It is feeble-minded. Perhaps it was born defective, or perhaps it has become imbecile through fear, malnutrition, and neglect. It picks its nose, and occasionally it fumbles vaguely with its toes or genitals as it sits hunched in the corner farthest from the bucket and the 2 mops. It's afraid of the mops. It finds them horrible. It shuts its eyes, but it knows the mops are still standing there, and the door is locked, and nobody will come. The door is always locked, and nobody ever comes, except that sometimes the child has no understanding of time or interval. Sometimes the door rattles terribly and opens, and a person or several people are there. One of them may come in and kick the child to make it stand up. The others never come close, but peer in at it with frightened, disgusted eyes. The food bowl and the water jug are hastily filled. The door is locked. The eyes disappear. The people at the door never say anything, but the child, who has not always lived in the tool room and can remember sunlight and its mother's voice, sometimes speaks. I will be good, it says. Please let me out. I will be good. They never answer. The child used to scream for help at night and cry a good deal, but now it only makes a kind of whining, and it speaks less and less often. It is so thin there are no calves to its legs. Its belly protrudes. It lives on a half bowl of cornmeal and grease a day. It's naked. Its buttocks and thighs are a mass of festered sores as it sits in its own excrement continually. They all know it is there, all the people of Omelas. Some of them have come to see it. Others are content merely to know it is there. They all know that it has to be there. Some of them understand why, and some do not, but they all understand that their happiness, the beauty of their city, the tenderness of their friendships, the health of their children, the wisdom of their scholars, the skill of their makers, even the abundance of their harvest and the kindly weathers of their skies depend wholly on this child and the child's abominable misery. This is usually explained to children when they are between 8 and 12, whenever they seem capable of understanding, and most of those who come to see the child are young people, though often enough an adult comes or comes back to see the child. No matter how well the matter has been explained to them, these young spectators are always shocked and sickened at the sight. They feel disgust, which they had thought themselves superior to. They feel anger, outrage, impotence, despite all the explanations. They would like to do something for the child, but there's nothing they can do. If the child were brought up into the sunlight out of that vile place, if it were cleaned and fed and comforted, that would be a good thing indeed. But if it were done in that day and hour, all the prosperity and beauty and delight of Omelas would wither and be destroyed. Those are the terms. To exchange all the goodness and grace of every life in Omelas for that one single small improvement. To throw away the happiness of thousands for the chance of happiness of one. That would be to let guilt within the walls indeed. The terms are strict and absolute. There may not even be a kind word spoken to this child.
Often the young people go home in tears or in a tearless rage when they have seen the child and faced this terrible paradox. They may brood over it for weeks or years, but as time goes on, they begin to realize that even if the child could be released, it would not get much good of its freedom. A little vague pleasure of warmth in food, no real doubt, but little more. It is too degraded and imbecile to know any real joy. It has been afraid too long ever to be free of fear. Its habits are too uncouth for it to respond to humane treatment. Indeed, after so long, it would probably be wretched without walls about it to protect it, and darkness for its eyes, and its own excrement to sit in. Their tears at the bitter injustice dry when they begin to perceive the terrible justice of reality and to accept it. Yet it is their tears and anger, the trying of their generosity and the acceptance of their helplessness, which are perhaps the true source of the splendor of their lives. There is no vapid, irresponsible happiness. They know that they, like the child, are not free. They know compassion. It is the existence of the child and their knowledge of its existence that makes possible the nobility of their architecture. How do you say that?
Poignancy.
Poignancy?
Poignancy. Poignancy. Like oh God. Keep going. Just keep going.
Okay.
Of their music.
The profundity of their science. It is because the child that they are so gentle with children. They know that if the wretched... They know that the wretched one were not there sniveling in the dark. The other one, the flute player, could make no joyful music as the young riders line up in their beauty for the race in the sunlight of the first morning of summer. Now do you believe them? Are they not more credible? But there is one more thing to tell, and this is quite incredible. At times, one of the adolescent girls or boys who go to see the child does not go home to weep or rage, does not in fact go home at all. Sometimes also a man or a woman, much older, falls silent for a day or two, then leaves home. These people go out in the street and walk down the street alone. They keep walking and walk straight out of the city of Omelas, through the beautiful gates. They keep walking across the farmlands of Omelas. Each one goes alone, youth or girl, man or woman. Night falls. The traveler must pass down village streets between the houses with yellow, lit windows and out into the darkness of the fields. Each alone they go west or north, towards the mountains. They go on. They leave Omelas. They walk ahead into the darkness, and they do not come back. The place they go towards is a place even less imaginable to most of us than the city of happiness. I cannot describe it at all. It is possible that it does not exist, but they seem to know where they are going. The ones who walk away from Omelas.
I am literally covered in chills.
What would you do?
It's really difficult because if it were me as I am today and I see that, I'd probably put everyone at risk and take the kid out.
Even if the kid isn't to live,
Then I'd
a
leave.
regular life?
At the very least, I would leave. But I understand people who have been born and raised in a certain situation, groomed to accept certain things. It's like a failing system. And when the system fails you and you're just taught to accept things a certain way, to accept a certain power dynamic, this is just how it is type of situation. It's really sad, but like I can also see why people just stay and accept it. Not saying that it's right, not saying I would, but it's like a moral, they're morally complicit in doing one person wrong because they all know about it.
Even after seeing the child?
But all they've known is this happiness, right? And so like the fear of the unknown can really mess somebody up. It can be that one thing that allows them to think it's okay if that kid, they're not going to survive anyways. If we bring them out, they're not going to be happy. If the rest of us can be happy, at least there's that. And like for me, like honestly, this just made me think about like, one, perfection is not real. And then two, like, would you rather be comfortable or have the right morals? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it makes me think of like our real world today. Like there are children suffering abroad for our comfort, right? Like, okay, sweatshops even. If we're not going to talk about war, let's talk about sweatshops and people who are working in situations that are unsafe, where they're not being paid, where they're starving but working, and we get to benefit off of that. I don't know. It makes me think of that. It makes me think of exploitation. It makes me think of global inequity and inequality. It makes me think of like all the ways in which like we all rationalize injustice in one way or another.
Do you think if you have strong morals, you are able to live a life of great comfort?
I think the question really is like, at what expense does that comfort come?
Yeah.
Is it a comfort that is like, do you find comfort in solitude, perhaps? In, working for your own goods, in community building, in activism? Like where do your morals lie, right? And what fills your cup? That's also a question. Is happiness really just blindly living through life, seeking pleasure only? Because nothing about this talked about meaning in life. Yes, they're cultural, they're intellectual, but even like intellectualism, when not applied, that's, in my opinion, hedonistic. Like it's a pleasure. You're pleasure seeking. There's a pleasure in academia when not with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's self-serving.
Right. And this sense of happiness to me is not happiness to me.
Yeah.
But like, that's because I attach like meaning to things. And so like for me, happiness has to come from something that's meaningful, not just a joyous feeling or occasion, because that cannot last. Like, just in my opinion, it's not. It's transitory. All emotions are transitory. So like to continue to be in one state means that you're continually working towards it or engaging in something that provides it. But like temporary pleasures are not happiness to me. They're distractions. I don't know.
I wonder why those that left the city didn't take the child with them.
Maybe they still saw it as like, there's one being harmed, but if I take them away, I'm harming everyone else. I don't know. Like I thought about that too. Like my brain was kind of cycling around that, because it's a quiet moral resistance. It's not an active moral resistance. Like they remove themselves from the situation, but they're not standing up. So it's like still a quiet bystander thing. Okay, you know how, okay. I know I don't want to make this about religion, but like we're both Muslims. So in Islam, we say when you see injustice, you should correct it. first with action. If you can't do it with that, then with your words. And if not that, then with your heart, like inside, like you don't stand for it. And like, maybe this is the only form that they felt they could do without ruining things for everyone else, without having a real solution. Maybe they're not capable of taking care of the kid, even if they bring them out. I don't know. Like, there's so many different circumstances that come from it, but yeah, it just made me think of that too. Like, maybe this is their one stance that they can take against like this huge systemic oppressive reality. The other thing though is when they walk away, they're walking away into like complete uncertainty. Like it says that, you know, some of them go north or east and they don't know where they're going, or I don't know what even exists out there, but they're going. It seems like they're certain they want to. Do you feel like it's courageous, or do you feel like that's like a blind move? Like, it's scary, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think it is, because you're deciding between staying and feeling guilt and shame for every second of your life, or leaving and having the possibility of maybe things, you know, maybe I might struggle, but at least I won't be dealing with this crippling.
I'm not being complicit to someone else's abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do think it is courageous in a sense. I'm not happy. With this.
Mm-hmm. As I was reading it, I was literally I'm still like getting chills down my back. Like
the way they were describing each other. Who decided this? Who put this poor kid in there?
Oh, I thought you said who decided to read this. I was going to say you.
No, I picked this.
I mean, it's like a really timeless allegory of like morals, and like it's like really making us think about like, what kind of world are you willing to accept, and like what are you willing to do to make it better, or what are you willing to give up to make it better? Like, can you sacrifice some of your comfort to make a better world altogether?
I feel like it's one thing to like grow up in this society or world, whatever it is, and know that there is some child being, you know, suffering at our expense, but to not see it. But I do think like a determining factor of your morality, it comes when you see the child, you know, if you see the child and
how you respond.
Yeah. And you're just like upset, like some of the people were like, but you move on.
Yeah, like they go home and they're upset, but they do nothing, and then they get over it and they're like, well, can't change anything about it anyways. Yeah.
I feel like that's, like you said, this is really reflective of our society right now. This almost feels a little bit worse because you're not, like you mentioned sweatshops, like we are not going overseas and like watching the workers.
Right.
And yet people find a way to stand up for them anyways. So I feel like it's just that much worse when you've seen it with your own eyes and you still choose to turn a blind eye.
I mean, there's so much injustice in the world, right? And so we think about like, even just where there's conflict and oppression and intentionally crippling situations that harm communities in mass. And people still sit by. And they can see it on their screen and literally say, that's sad. And then move on. It's really scary because it's like we're kind of there. We're there. Like, it's not like in our faces, but it's there. We're able to see it and move on with our day. You and I, we've had conversations about this before, but like this really speaks to like how desensitized people are. And then like selfish, like willing to accept injustice because of selfishness and individual happiness. And we live in a really individualized society nowadays, right? Like I don't know, maybe culturally we're still in a communal space, but like the West, for example, praises the individual. Like the more you stand out, the more it doesn't matter how many heads you step on, the more you're able to climb your personal ladder, the more successful you seem. And even like, I don't know, so many different things, capitalism, just like there's so many different ways in which our society currently perpetuates the cycle of injustice, and we feed into it just based on like the values that we have around how we determine if a person is successful, if they have meaning or worth, the things they own, the, you know, all of that. Like, what could walking away look like today? We can't save everyone, but like, how could we still take a stand?
Building community bridges, because it's so much harder to take a stand when you're facing it alone. But if we're able to come back together by creating spaces where we can actually talk to one another and, you know, get somewhat on the same page, then I feel like that's when we actually have a fighting chance of battling injustice. But like you said, like living in such an individualized society, it like you have to, like, you would have to actively work so hard against the system to make change. But that doesn't mean it can't happen.
I think what you said about building community around seeking change, truth, activism, like that's grassroots culture, you know? And I feel like that's where everything starts. Like, change doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen with one voice. It happens with the voices of many together. I mean, okay, it can happen with one voice if it's drastic enough, but really, like, just how we see it, like, it makes sense what you're saying. And I think, like, at the core of all that is being willing to stand up and speak up.
Being
and
questioning.
Yeah, like willing to think outside of the box when you need to, and then when something doesn't sit right with you, saying something about it. Like, so many people just stay quiet because they don't want to rock the boat, right? But like, we also live in such a globalized world where you can find other people who, you know, share your views. And I think silence sometimes is acceptance, whether or not you realize it. So whether you're taking action or speaking up is really going to like be important. And even, okay, like boycotting is always something, right? That's an action that's silent but shows your stance. Just, I think sometimes it's really important for us to like not lose sight of the fact that it's still important to, you exist in this world. Your decisions do make a difference. Even if you don't feel them, you're adding to a system, you're adding to a process. And like, just because you think you're safe from taking a side doesn't mean your actions are now negated or like non-consequential. You still live in this world, so you kind of have to have some sort of accountability, so that you're not complicit at the very least. I don't know. It's like bystander effect. Yeah. You know, like if you say, oh, well, it's not my issue,
you're contributing to the issue.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And we now have access to so many platforms and ways that you can reach people. I mean, if you're to just go on social media and leave one comment, you can change someone's worldview. Like, you can change people's minds, even if you're to just like things and share and repost. Like, it counts.
Yeah. No matter how small it feels. And then having conversations in your home if you're not posting online, and just how you show up, where you show up matters. Not everyone has to do everything the same, but in the spaces that you find worthwhile or important, show up there too. Oh, this was good. I'm so glad you picked this, Nour. This was amazing. I haven't read this before.
I went into this so blind.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Like, I didn't even pre-read. I was just like, Omelas, what's this? I really thought we were about to read some fantasy thing. I don't even know. Like, I've heard the name Ursula K. Guin.
I have.
Is she also hold on, Ursula? She wrote something, I swear. Give me a second. Mm, a Wizard of Earthsea. That's the one I've heard of. I think it became a movie too. Let's see. Did it?
Was that the one that was trending on Book Talk?
Honestly, I don't even know.
I remember there was a book by Ursula going around.
Okay, so she was born in 1929 and passed away in 2018. She's got a lot of speculative fiction, including what we just read. She was known to be a major voice in American letters and said that she preferred to be known as an American novelist. And this is like so big for their time, right? But I was reading a little bit about her, and it says that she refused a Nebula Award, and the Nebula Award is for, I think, sci-fi stuff, for her story The Diary of the Rose in 1977 in protest at the Science Fiction Writers of America's revocation of Stanislaw Lem's membership. Stanislaw Lem, and she felt reluctant to receive an award for a story about political intolerance from a group that had just displayed political intolerance. So she stood by by her morals and values. She was raised irreligious, took a deep interest in Taoism and Buddhism, so she was spiritual. And in 2009, she resigned from the Authors Guild in protest over its endorsement of Google's book digitization project. She said there are principles involved, above all, the whole concept of copyright, and you have seen fit to abandon to a corporation on their terms without a struggle. And she criticized Amazon and the control it exerted over the publishing industry. She just stood up for whatever she felt was right and fair, and she wasn't afraid, it seems like. And she used her writing as a form of sharing those thoughts and ideas too, which is really amazing. Mm-hmm. Was this your first time reading like speculative fiction?
Yes.
It's like interesting, right? I was so lost. I was like, is this a real place? Are we reading fantasy right now?
Yeah.
So lost.
I think it really came together only towards the end.
How do you feel like you can take a stand, especially in today's modern world where we have moral scapegoats in every situation? Do you feel like it's important for you to take a stand? Are there ways to do this gently? Does it need to be drastic? Can we create change? Those are thoughts I hope if somebody's watching this, they can share. I feel like things like this provoke really great discussion. So I'd be interested in hearing more.
And that's a wrap, BOGO Beans. Let us know if you're vibing with these short stories or if you're craving a deep dive into a longer, juicy novel next.
If you have a suggestion, leave it in the comments below. Again, as always, we thank you so much.
Till next time.
Bye.